perhaps even worse, a cult set out to control your life. Well, my friends, get nice and cozy, sit back and relax as we break down the twisted history of these various schemes. Hello, my lovely YouTube friends. I'm so happy to see you here today. So, we are back in our cozy little space here. I know several of you commented that you enjoyed it, so thank you so much for that. For this video, it's a little bit different. I wanted to explore the origins of, I guess you could call it at this point in time, a community that is often considered to be very toxic and dangerous. Talking about the MLM community. And we'll get more into what MLMs are, what makes them truly illegal. So not all MLMs are, no MLM is technically illegal, but there are several out there who are probably operating in an illegal way. And I'm very fascinated with the anti-MLM community. I follow several creators in that space, and I was just very interested about how it all started. Where is the origins? Like, how did we get here, basically? So, I put together this video. It's a little bit different as I was making it. It was really, I guess, I'm really hoping you all find it as interesting as I did, basically. So, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for being here. And without further ado, let's get to ASMRing. So, to begin, let us first define exactly what a Ponzi scheme, a pyramid scheme, and a multi-level marketing company, or MLM, is. So let's start with a Ponzi scheme. So, in a Ponzi scheme, people make money solely by investing. There are no recruitment tactics. So the person who organizes this type of fraud, it is essentially fraud, is in charge of controlling the entire operation. So basically, participants contribute money to the scammer, and this scammer kind of promises them a high return of their money. And when these participants want their money back, they are paid out with the incoming funds contributed by later participants. But rather than actually put the money into a type of investment that actually earns interest, the scammer merely transfers the funds from one client to another and foregoes any real investment activities. Now, the Ponzi scheme got its name from Charles Ponzi, who from 1919 to 1920 operated a fraudulent investment scheme in the United States. And how it worked is that Ponzi promised investors 50% returns in 45 days by exploiting international postal reply coupons, which I thought was interesting. But in reality, he used new investor money to pay earlier participants, and his scheme essentially collapsed in 1920, leading to massive recruiting others into the so-called business. The initial scammer recruits people to invest their money into the business and then offers monetary payouts for recruiting more people into the business. So then those participants will continue to recruit other people, and then those people will recruit, and so on and so forth. So for example, the English scheme Give and Take requested £3,000 as an entry fee and promised a $20,000 bonus for recruiting a certain amount of new members. So they invested their money and would actually make more money solely by recruiting other people. And that's what makes it illegal, is the emphasis or prioritization of recruitment. So people at the top of the pyramid, and I always think of The Office when you draw the pyramid, tend to profit the most. And that is because the money paid by new recruits is used to pay off the participants who joined earlier. So as more people join, more money finds its way into the pyramid. But that money largely goes to those participants who joined earlier on. So really, only the people who joined at the very beginning have the potential to make money when the recruiting of people is easier. So basically, the business is still new, and so you're kind of the first to jump into the business, and you have more likelihood, more potential to have more people under you because it's brand new. You're like the first person to kind of jump on the trend and join the trend and start the trend, and then you're able to recruit more people, so you're more likely to make more money and the most money. And those at the bottom tend to lose out since they're at the bottom of the pyramid and may not have people under them if they can't get people to join. And because early participants earn more money, they have an easier time of recruiting people because they are actually making money, and then can use that to convince more people to join, which only profits them more. But at some point, the pyramid becomes too big, and the promoters or the kind of scammers, usually the owners of the pyramid scheme, can't raise enough money from new participants to pay earlier participants, resulting in people losing money and losing the money they initially invested. And by the time the pyramid scheme inevitably shuts down, the people at the top will often, not always, but often walk away with a lot of money, and the majority of people are left completely empty-handed or even in the negative. Now, what about multi-level marketing companies or MLMs? Don't those often also involve recruitment? Well, yes, they do. So here's kind of how an MLM works. So multi-level marketing is actually a legal business model, and this business model involves the sale of actual goods or services by distributors or participants in the MLM. And distributors get paid for the products and services of the MLM that they sell. They can also receive income from sales made by distributors that they've recruited and from people those recruits then bring in. However, some pyramid schemes disguise themselves as MLMs, as we've been talking about recruitment. Number one, this is kind of the main way of drawing people into the scheme. And you can't join and thus earn money unless you pay a fee. And in most cases, you'll also be promised more money if you recruit others. And something to kind of note from my just knowledge, which I don't know, is not that much, but also more than the average person on MLMs, oftentimes they're not going to outwardly say that the emphasis is on recruitment, but you can see that that is indeed the case based on like their income statements, how people primarily make money, and that's kind of the extra digging that you have to go, because on the surface they're not going to say recruitment is the main way to make money, because that's illegal. Fast cash. Number two, most pyramid schemes promise to pay you big returns in a short amount of time, and in many cases these returns usually come from money paid by new recruits. Number three, passive income. There are many schemes that promise to pay you money without any actual work. Again, this money is almost always coming from new recruits to the pyramid. Number four. Lack of documentation. So kind of like the Ponzi scheme, there is almost never any documentation that proves how the revenue is generated. So kind of keeping in mind that, be sure to ask for those financial statements, which should be audited by some type of professional, ideally, if possible. And number five, a hard to understand commission structure. So if you can't understand how things are organized, how you're making your money, where the profits are coming from, then it's probably too good to be true. Now let us get more into the history of specifically MLMs. So multi-level marketing is sometimes referred to as network marketing or direct selling, and this is because it emerged from traditional direct sales models, which date back to the 19th century. So, for example, companies like Avon, which was founded in 1886 as the California Perfume Company, and a company I've actually never heard of, the Fuller Brush Company, which was founded in 1906. So these two companies really pioneered direct sales by employing independent sales representatives who earned commissions on their sales. And these companies thrived by selling products door to door. And the concept of selling products while also recruiting and training other salespeople began to take shape in this era. However, compensation at this stage was, for the most part, focused on single level selling, meaning representatives really only earned commissions on their own sales rather than the sales of their recruits. Now, one of the earliest true MLM structures that we know today was developed by Carl Renborg in the 1940s with his company Neutralite, which some of you may have heard of. So, Renborg had an interest in vitamins and supplements and sold his products through direct sales, but later introduced a compensation system that rewarded sellers for recruiting other people. this model allowed distributors to earn commissions not just from their own sales, but also from the sales of those they recruited, creating a downline of sellers. So Nutrilite's compensation model laid the groundwork for modern MLM structures. However, it also, at the same time, caught the attention of regulators who began scrutinizing the company for potential pyramid scheme operations. Now, this brings us to the 1950s. Two Nutrilite distributors, J. Van Andel and Richard DeVos, left the company and founded Amway, short for American Way. And again, I'm sure maybe some of you have heard of Amway. And they founded this company in 1959. So Amway kind of really changed the game, even more so than Nutrilite. And it quickly became one of the largest and most influential MLM companies in the world. So the success of Amway in the 1960s and the 1970s led to a surge of MLM companies, basically, and many of these companies followed the kind of same business structure as Amway. So, for example, companies like Mary Kay, which was founded in 1963, Shackley, which was founded in 1956, and Herbalife, which was founded in 1980, adopted this MLM model. And during this period, MLMs capitalized on the appeal of entrepreneurship and financial independence, often marketing themselves as opportunities for people, most especially women and stay-at-home parents, to earn income while quote-unquote working from home. So this brings us to the 1990s and the early 2000s, which saw further expansion of MLMs, especially considering the rise in things like the internet, email, phones, very much changed the game in the MLM space. So companies like Nu Skin, Usana, and Young Living, just as an example of MLMs I'm throwing out there, kind of seemed to thrive during this period. But with that, again, kind of as in the past, we also started to see much more scrutiny of MLMs. So numerous MLMs actually faced lawsuits for deceptive business practices, and some were shut down for operating as illegal pyramid schemes, which we'll get into a little bit more later. So, after 2010, kind of another big change in the landscape of MLMs, even more so, was due to the rise of the internet as we know it today. So social media, right? Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of that's really further changed the MLM landscape. So, for example, companies like LuLaRoe, Beachbody, and It Works relied pretty heavily on this new, at the time, idea of influencers and social media to recruit new sellers. And this era also brought increased criticisms in MLMs, particularly, as mentioned in the beginning, in the form of anti-MLM activism via online communities, YouTube videos, even documentaries, ways for people to kind of own their own business, for example. But several critics also at the same time point out that the vast majority of participants lose money and that the focus on recruitment over product sales actually makes them an illegal pyramid scheme. As regulatory scrutiny increases and consumer awareness really is growing more and more day by day, the future of MLMs is kind of wishy-washy. It kind of remains uncertain. And some companies are actually responding to this scrutiny and kind of changing their business models, kind of, reimagining, changing how they are structured and what their emphasis is on, and are now primarily focused on product sales over recruitment. And other MLMs are kind of holding on, maybe for dear life, to the same kind of recruitment focused, although they probably wouldn't say that, but recruitment focused model. But with that are gonna potentially come legal and also reputational challenges as well. So whether MLMs kind of all evolve ideally into a ethical business model remains to be seen. And also with that, kind of questioning if stricter regulations will further be imposed on those MLMs as well. So it's all kind of up in the air at this point. So with that little bit of history of MLM specifically, let's take a deeper look into kind of the underlying or the culture of MLMs that are actually operating as pyramid schemes. So the thing about MLMs / pyramid schemes, all of that, is that sometimes they can actually be likened to a commercial cult. And why is that? That's pretty drastic, right? That was kind of what I thought, like, wow, that's intense. Why is that? So, in addition to using recruitment tactics, which we just talked extensively about, and the promise of making a lot of money, all of that, MLMs, pyramid schemes, might also use various cult-like tactics such as self-blame, thought-stopping, and magical thinking, just as an example, which are all tenets of cults. So in a pyramid scheme / MLM, you're often, and again, you can't generalize, so yeah, you're often made to be the problem if your business is failing because you are not working hard enough, which would be the self-blame. And often questions and criticisms of the systems or the leaders is not allowed, which would be like thought-stopping. And then also an overwhelming use of language that involves manifestation of success and getting rich quick, kind of the power of positive thinking, overlooking the sales aspect of true successful businesses, and achieving a dream lifestyle all fall under magical thinking. Also, while recruiting, people are often told not to take no for an answer because eventually people will be worn down and decide to join. Toxic positivity and not discussing difficult topics is often touted, which is really dangerous because it clouds people's ability to think can support cutting off people from your life who do not support your endeavors or try to talk you out of it. So, taking all of this into consideration, if we follow Dr. Stephen Hassan's BITE model, B-I-T-E, which describes cults' specific methods to recruit and maintain control over people, several pyramid MLMs can be classified as commercial cults. And this BITE model stands for behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotional control, which is pretty scary. I found that very fascinating, very interesting, kind of one of the reasons I really wanted to make this video, to just really understand how we got here, how we got to a point where some MLMs are actually likened to a cult. So, with that entire history, I really wanted to get more into like the truly twisted history of a specific pyramid MLM scheme called Vemma. So, Vemma Nutrition Company was an MLM company founded in 2004 by Benson K., Lauren, and Karen Borrego, and sold health and wellness drinks. Vemma sold its products through its website and also through distributors or affiliates who gained a share of revenue from their product sales as well as from the product sales of those whom they recruited. So to fully understand Vemma as an MLM, we have to go way back. So remember how I mentioned Amway earlier? Well, founder Benson K. Borrego's parents were actually distributors for Amway, and by the age of 18, Benson had his own Amway membership as well. Then, in 1995, Benson and his family started New Vision International MLM, which sold dietary supplements. And the Borrego family had their first run-in with the FTC, or Federal Trade Commission, in 1999 when they ordered New Vision International to stop making unsubstantiated health claims that their supplements, also referred to as God's recipe, could cure and or treat ADD and ADHD. And this order was to remain in place. So this order by the FTC was to remain in place for any Borrego-owned company until 2019. And that will be important to remember as we get a little bit more into this story. Then, in 2004, Vemma was founded and began selling mangosteen-based supplements marketed as liquid nutrition. In 2006, Dr. Mehmet Oz, so Dr. Oz from the Dr. Oz show, partnered with Vemma, allegedly due to Vemma's large contributions to his charity, which was shared, that kind of little fact, was shared by an Oz representative. Specifically, he endorsed Vemma's new product called Verve, which was launched in 2007 and was a healthy energy drink. And then in 2011, New Vision International was merged with Vemma entirely. So they became one company. So this brings us now to 2012, when Vemma launched the Young People Revolution, or the YPR adolescents and other young adults and made claims that Vemma was a profitable alternative to traditional employment, and depicted young affiliates surrounded by conspicuous displays of wealth, such as luxury cars and yachts, for example. They were also allegedly told by the founders and company leaders that college was a waste of time. However, they also allegedly failed to disclose that Vemma's structure ensured that most participants would not earn substantial income and provided affiliates with false and misleading materials for recruiting others. By 2013, the company reported $20 million in monthly sales, with 30,000 new people joining a month. Parayco earned $12 million for the year, while the majority of distributors earned less than $1,600 for the year. And according to an analysis done by TINA, TINA.org, 70% made no money at all. Then in 2014, the company announced that it was modifying its compensation plan by removing the sign-up fees and the $150 minimum monthly product purchase to qualify for commission to avoid fallout with the FTC. But some reports say this was just a front, as the company actually never required sign-up fees and allegedly still required minimum monthly purchases for full eligibility of commission. Yeah, so this brings us to 2014, which is a bad year to be Vemma. First, several complaints were made by parents of college students stating that the company had cult-like qualities. Then, in March 2014, the Italian Consumer Protection Agency fined Vemma $100,000 and found that Vemma was acting as a pyramid scheme by encouraging recruitment as the primary means of profit rather than product sales. In June 2014, TINA.org published their investigation that several high-ranking officials, including Vemma's highest-paid couple, Tom and Bethany Alcazine, were making unsubstantiated health and treatment claims, which, remember, is in violation of the 1999 order, which was to remain in effect until 2019, and it's only 2014 at this point in time. In response, Parayco promises to eliminate some of the claims. And in October 2014, a class action lawsuit was filed in federal court against Vemma due to the illegal health claims and worthless studies used to back up these claims. And in November 2014, TINA.org launches a campaign on Twitter, #VemmaTruth, to expose all the false claims still out there on social media, which disappear off social media shortly after being brought to the public's attention. And after this year, several high earners and even spearheads of the YPR movement jumped ship for other MLMs. Yeah. This brings us to April 2015. Switzerland's Federal Department of Economic Affairs reported Vemma to a prosecutor to pursue criminal charges due to running a pyramid scheme after receiving multiple complaints complaints about the business. Also, in Austria, the Vorarlberg Chamber of Labor's Consumer Protection Division stated they were going to pursue criminal proceedings against the company for being a pyramid scheme and issued a statement warning people against working with the company. Lastly, in August 2015, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, filed a lawsuit against Vemma Nutrition Company, Vemma International Holdings Incorporated, CEO Benson K. Borrego, and top affiliate Tom Alkazine. According to the complaints, the defendants encouraged participants to buy products to qualify for bonuses and to recruit others to do the same, resulting in a pyramid scheme that compensated participants mainly for recruiting others rather than for retail sales. The FTC also claimed that Vemma had misrepresented participants' earning potential and that the Borrego family had inappropriately incorporated dozens of companies with the same staff, facilities, and commingled funding. The FTC highlighted income claims of $50,000 per week compared with a far more modest reality. More than 97% of Vemma's active affiliates earned $12,000 a year or less. And then on September 18th, 2015, a judge ruled that Vemma was operating as a pyramid scheme and that their marketing material had been deceptive and misleading. The company was ordered to pay a $238 million fine as a company and restructure its compensation plan. The order also barred these defendants from involvement in any pyramid, Ponzi, or chain marketing schemes, and prohibits them from making misrepresentations about the profitability of business ventures or the health benefits of products. Lastly, the order required Vemma to provide compliance reports from an independent auditor for 20 years. A separate order provides similar conduct provisions against Vemma's affiliate Tom Alkazine and his wife Bethany Alkazine, and imposes a judgment of more than $6.7 million on them. But in 2017, the Borrego family started Bode Pro, an MLM, and allegedly merged all the Vemma products into the new brand in 2018, where they actually continue to be sold. So my friends, that is all that I have for you today. Isn't that wild? I found that very fascinating. Yeah, I really wanted to break down, like I said, just what exactly are the differences? How can we know what the differences are? How can we know what makes for an MLM that's actually operating as a pyramid scheme? How did MLMs even get to where they're at now, given that they are technically legal? And so many of them now are operating illegally and worse, as a cult. And with several stories of MLMs that have been shut down, and just the atrocities, the horrible ways that they have impacted people, I think I nice. I hope the audio was nice, as always. And yeah, I greatly